I'm here with my colleague.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. David Rivera. I'm one of the advisors for this year. And I'm also a professor at Queens College and here to co-facilitate our session here today. But to get us started, since we're transitioning from more of an active, energetic capacity, I'll take us through a very, very brief mindfulness exercise. Begin by bringing your attention into your body. You can close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. You can notice your body seated wherever you're seated, feeling the weight of your body in your chair, on the floor. Take a few deep breaths. And as you take a deep breath, bring in more oxygen and lighten the body. And as you exhale, have a sense of relaxing more deeply. You can notice your feet on the floor. Notice the sensations of your feet touching the floor. The weight and pressure, vibration, heat. You can notice your legs against the chair. Pressure, pulsing, heaviness, lightness. Notice your back against the chair. Bring your attention to your stomach area. If your stomach is tense or tight, let it soften. Take a breath. Notice your hands. Are your hands tense or tight? If so, you can allow them to soften. Notice your arms. Feel any sensation in your arms. Let your shoulders be soft. Notice your neck and throat. Let them be soft. Relax. Soften your jaw. Let your face and facial muscles be soft. Then notice your whole body present. Take one more breath. Be aware of your whole body as best you can. Take a breath. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes. How are folks feeling right now? A little bit more relaxed, a little bit more present, a little bit more aware of your body, what it's feeling like. Maybe some of the tensions that you weren't aware of before. Maybe some of them are alleviated now, or at least you know where they're at. I often find it's helpful to incorporate mindfulness across all of our practices, including how we can respond to bias, hurt, pain, hate. Right? And the exercise I just did for you is easily replicable. I can easily send you that short script. Something that you can practice with yourself, with your students, with your colleagues. Anytime you notice the environment getting tense around you, I often find that something like this can help bring us back to where we are, help us kind of reorganize our thoughts, help us to kind of have a better understanding of our emotions and our feelings. And that can lead to more productivity and optimizing our lives. So, nice. Okay, so quick overview of what we're going to do. So the description kind of is very grand, right? We're going to talk about how to address institutional bias. We're going to cover 3 areas. We're going to talk about some frameworks that you can use to kind of conceptualize yourself and your community and what you can do from your position to address bias in various ways. We're going to talk about the impact. So we already spent a lot of time this morning, so we're going to just breeze over that very quickly. I think that we're all here because we know that racism on campuses has true and meaningful impact on the lives of all the students and community members present. And then we're going to describe some approaches for addressing campus bias. One disclaimer I'm going to give is that we might fly through some slides, but we have references that we can give you to further expand on the concepts. So there's so much information that we wanted to give you, so we have to parse it down into something that we felt was more digestible for you all. And we're going to try to leave about 15 minutes at the end for interactive discussion. So as you have questions and thoughts, we'll have some time at the end for you to share those with us.
Great. This is going to be one of the ones that we're going to plot through really quickly. And the other piece that I think that we should probably say is that David and I are both psychologists, which you can probably do with the meditation piece at the beginning. Both psychologists, both counseling psychologists, and so think practical practice-related selves to the work that we do, but also thinking about how research informs that and what the relationship is around those things. So we are here today, certainly with that background, but talking a lot about what it means to practice in these areas, what it looks like on campuses to actually do it, right? So this first model that is probably very common to a lot of people, inclusive excellence, really talks about how is it that we leverage the assets of the institution such that we are talking about diversity and inclusion, right, throughout the institution, not just thinking about the Office of Multicultural Affairs, handling the work, and not just thinking about the Black people in African American studies doing this work, but how is it that we set up a framework where every layer of the institution, from the folks who are in the administration buildings, to the people who are doing police work on campus, to the folks who are in the classroom, to the folks who are taking care of the campus, how is it that we're thinking about leveraging diversity, equity, and inclusion in those spaces such that everybody buys into the vision and everybody buys into the practices of what it means to actually promote a campus where this morning's speaker really focused on how are we having a behavioral climate and a psychological climate where people feel like they matter and people are interacting with each other as if they feel like they matter. There's tons of literature and scholarship on the inclusive excellence model. Literally, you could probably Google it and come up with things that are all happening at a lot of different campuses. And I do know that Michigan is a campus that really uses this model a lot. This is one thing that we also wanted to talk about. Are there folks in the room who are familiar with the inclusive excellence or have some working knowledge? So raise your hand really high, right? So to turn around, pay attention to the folks who are holding up their hands. Part of the equity and mental health framework that we're going to talk about later is making sure that you make connections with people around the resources that are happening at different campuses so that you can talk to people about that and maybe bring some of the ideas to your campus. Feel free to engage some of these people who just held up their hand about the inclusive excellence model. They might be able to share with you some of what's happening here at the University of Michigan.
So speaking of the equity and mental health framework that's been mentioned, that the 10 recommendations are spelled out in your book, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time describing what it is. I would encourage you to plug into your bookmark equityandmentalhealth.org. That's where you'll find the recommendations, implementation strategies, and a newly created toolkit that you can use to address these issues on your campus. But we want to bring this up as a major framework as well that really is addressing inclusive excellence, right, from a mental health perspective for students of color. And what we hope once the equity and mental health framework is rolled out across institutions is that we're going to start to see a kind of a rollover effect, right? So we're addressing students of color well-being, but that in effect is going to have a positive influence on other students who are marginalized on campus. It's going to have a positive effect on students who might have a lot of privileged identities on campus as well, as they kind of see themselves more accurately in relation to their peers on campus, right? As we start to kind of build more awareness about our true identities, our true lives, and how we're impacted with the interplay of the environment on those issues. Which brings me to the campus ecology perspective, which is another framework that I think is extremely helpful in terms of conceptualizing the work that we're doing. Right? I think that for all too long we've been stuck on that. The smaller sphere of the student, right? Addressing the issue as if it has originated and lives only within the student, right? But it's not the case. I kind of conceptualize the illness belonging to the institution, right? The institution is who is sick. The institution is broken, right? The institution for all too long has been created and structured to support a few at the expense of the rest, right? And so it's really the response of the institution that is most likely aggravating and possibly even creating a lot of the dysfunction, a lot of the hurt, a lot of the pain that students of color are expressing. And it's very clear, Dr. Tabby's presentation this morning very clearly articulated all those various disparities that we see in terms of who feels included, who doesn't feel included, right? Who doesn't feel heard, who feels invisible, who doesn't feel invisible, as well as some of those testimonials via the narratives that were shared that really are highlighted the real life experiences that students have. And I'd love to say that those are only happening on one campus. Who here kind of felt like they have students on their campuses who can resonate with a lot of those statements that were shared earlier? So I see nearly everybody saying yes, right? So no, this is not an isolated issue whatsoever. But taking this perspective helps us to elevate it beyond the student perspective, right? Which will also help us to depathologize these issues as Depathologized, sorry. I woke up at 3 this morning in New York to be here, so my brain might also not be functioning properly. As we know, we need to take care of ourselves. My brain wasn't doing that this morning. But anyway, so it helps us to depathologize the student, right? It kind of puts more of the pressure on the institution as providing a lot of that, a lot of the dynamics that can elevate mental health issues. But also the institution is embedded in the larger community, which is embedded within the public sphere. And we don't have to look, not even a few minutes ago, to find a very clear threat coming from national policy, right? There's more and more of these on a daily basis. And so we're having to attend to many spheres, but it's good to kind of conceptualize how the larger sphere of our nation, of the policies, of the rhetoric, can filter down to impact the student through all of these other cultures. And some of those examples in terms of what the student is experiencing has to do with the disproportionate amount of people of color in the higher education system. We see that the student population isn't really mirroring the national population. When you look at the professors, it even gets much smaller, right? Only about 30% of professors identify as people of color. So think about that for 1 second. Think about maybe even your own experience and the number of people that you had that taught you that looked like you, right? That shared a common language, that shared a common background. Let's say that you were an accounting major, and let's take myself, I'm Latino. Sorry. I didn't have one single Latino accounting professor. What message does that send to me about my belonging in that profession, right? Not very positive messages, not very inclusive messages. Right, so representation does matter. On a larger scale, the LEAD Fund did a study. Is anybody familiar with the LEAD Fund in this study on the prevalence of hate across campuses? So they had 59 campuses fill out a survey, kind of talking about the various types of hate and bias that were occurring on campus, and we see, by and large, like most of them are reporting conduct that was prohibited by some kind of policy or procedure, right? Or that was against a protected class on campus. What I want to juxtapose that with is the last one, right? That 29% reported conduct considered uncivil, but not motivated by bias. So we see that most of the incivility and hate and bias occurring on campus is targeted, right? It's not just being rude, not just like closing the door on somebody or not holding it open for them or not including somebody because of something not related to race and but I think this really kind of highlights how much of the hate is really targeted, right? How much of the uncivil behavior is really targeted and not just something that occurs just because of being a human being.
So, but I'll just add something to this that we didn't even talk about. On my campus, we are a Gallup campus or a Thriving Workplace Initiative campus. Are people familiar with that initiative at all? It's something that is being used in a lot of companies, but it's beginning to come to higher education. And we are one of, I think University of Maryland might be one of the first places that's allowing them to do that work or partnering with them to do the work. One of the things that's really significant about what David just shared is that Gallup doesn't do a lot of work around diversity and inclusion, but they're trying to figure out a way into the conversation. And they have produced what they're calling an inclusion index. And what they've noted is that places that are more responsive to diversity or places where people feel like they're included really highlights three things. That people feel respected in the work that they do. People feel like they are, their uniqueness is really valued and the strengths that they bring to the workplace are valued. And they also believe that leaders are going to do the right thing. And in all of those metrics, what they're talking about, it kind of boils down to, especially around respect and trust, is that people feel as though in their workplace settings and on college campuses too, they don't feel respected or they don't trust the leaders when there are issues of discrimination and bias that occur, right? Most of what's being reported around not trusting the institution or not feeling respected is because of people feeling like they're not being respected for the individual that they are around their identities. So we have to really be thinking about really different ways of finding ourselves in these conversations. Some people want to talk about hate bias. Some people might just want to talk about the trust and respect pieces. What we have to do is think of different tools to be able to use on our campuses to get our leaders involved in the conversation. One of the things that we wanted to highlight as we were talking about the impact is maybe give you a tool, because there's a part of us that thinks that we are here this morning preaching to the choir, so to say. Folks who are really invested and interested in this work. We wanted to be able to give you a tool to be able to maybe go back to your campuses and help folks on your campus understand the impact of what it's like to be discriminated against, right? So everybody here got a card. I was walking around making sure everybody got a card. Anybody not get a card? We, of course, we have extra. Sorry. Okay. I need one into that as well. Okay. So this takes it down. We're going to put you through a simulation. That's going to be a part of this workshop, and it will have some meaning as we move forward. And I can send you the directions to this. This is not a unique exercise that I created. This is from Kathy O'Bear's work. Okay. So here's the next part of the exercise. You are now going to begin to have interactions with people in the room, and you're going to just talk to them just like you would have a regular normal conversation, or like society would actually permit us to have regular normal conversations. But what you're going to do is this. You're going to hold up your card in front of you like this, so that other people can see the value of your card, but you cannot see the value of your card, right? And you're going to interact with people based upon the perceived value of that card. And I'm going to tell you what those values are, okay? So if somebody has like an ace, king, queen, jack, one of the higher cards, you're going to treat them the way that we treat people who have social privilege or social benefit in our country, right? The way that society treats those folks. If you encounter somebody who has like a 2, 3, 4, 5, one of the lower cards, you're going to treat them the way society generally treats people who do not have social privilege in our country, or who are the marginalized in our country, right? If you encounter somebody who has a middle card, 6, 7, 8, 9 in there, you're going to treat them the way that we treat people who happen to land in the middle. Okay? So folks with a higher card get treated like those who have social privilege. Folks with lower cards get treated like those who are marginalized in the society. And folks in the middle, you treat them that way. You're going to have 2 minutes to do this. There'll be a timer going on for this. And what you want to try to do is interact with as many people as you possibly can. Okay? Anybody have any questions? Of course, the chairs make it a little bit difficult, but you can manage, right? Just kind of mill about a little bit, and make sure that you do not want to talk to anybody explicitly about the value of their card. You want to interact with them based upon your perception of the value of the card, but you don't reveal the value of the card. Okay? Any questions? 2 minutes, go. If you can hear me, raise your hand. Okay, so here's what I'd like for you to do now. Without looking at your card, here's what I'd like to happen. If you are somebody who perceives that you have to, like, based upon the way that people treated you, if you're somebody who perceives that you have like an ace, king, queen, one of the higher cards, raise your hand. Okay? What I'd like for you folks to do, and maybe stay where you are for just a second now, and so that this works out okay. What I'd like for you folks to do is to make your way to the back of the room, but just stay where you are right now, right? If you are somebody who believes that you have like a 2, 3, 4, one of the lower cards, what I'd like for you to do is make your way to the front of the room, right? And if you are somebody who believes that you have one of the middle cards, kind of congregate here in the middle aisle, okay? So the high cards to the back, low cards to the front, middle cards to the front. Here are the next set of instructions. Here's the next set of instructions. You're going to, in smaller groups than this, because of course you can't have a conversation in the current groups that you're in. What I'm going to encourage you to do is in these subgroups that you group in numbers of about 5 or 6 people in those groups. Like in the low group, I would like you to form groups of 5 or 6 people, so it might be about 4 or 5 groups, right? What I'd like for you to do is think about and talk about these questions. What happened that made you think that you were a part of this group that you have now self-selected yourself into? And how did it feel to be treated like you were treated in this group as a result of the simulation, right? So, in your smaller groups, you're going to actually respond to these questions. I've given you some prompts up there to help you understand a little bit more about what you should be talking about. Especially with regards to what happened. What did people say to you? What did people do behaviorally? What did you observe non-verbally within that communicated to you that you were part of this group? And then, of course, I want you to focus a lot on the feelings about what it felt like to be treated like you were treated as a result of being in this group, okay? I'm also going to give you just 2 minutes to do that, just really because of time. Ordinarily, I would give you way more time to do this. But 2 minutes for you to form smaller groups to have this conversation. Okay, go. Let me explain to you actually what we're going to do. Okay, so everybody can see me, right? this is that I would actually have each group report out about what it was like for them, right? Today, we just don't have time for that. However, we are going to ask some people from the lower number group to report out because that's actually where the impact is felt in these types of situations. So, everybody back here, you can go to your seat. We'll hold these people up here for a second.
Still hasn't said so.
Okay. So here's what I'd like to do. We are trying to move through this really quickly. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually just going to give the mic to a few people. They don't know that I'm going to give the mic to them. And they're going to talk a little bit about what they observed in the simulation that communicated to them that they were a part of this group, and I'd also like for them to talk a little bit about what it felt like, okay?
Okay. So yeah, I guess the first thing somebody asked me is if I was from rural America, and then when I told them I was actually born in Detroit, they were like, "Oh, I think you're." So that was like I immediately knew.
How did you feel?
I guess, I mean, what I shared in the group is that, like, talking to people period makes me really anxious. So this makes me really anxious. Talking about mental health. Yeah, so I guess that just, like, it almost made me feel better. So I was like, oh, I don't want to talk to people anymore. Yeah.
I felt no one gave me eye contact in the beginning, so that was a number of cue to me like, hey, you really don't belong. And so I pulled back a lot instead of engaging with people until someone else from local engaged with me. So I felt a sense of familiarity, but otherwise I pulled back and then engaged.
I felt like I was kind of stuck, like I couldn't move because they didn't give me the time of day. They looked me up and down or give me an eyebrow. So I felt stationary while I saw other high cards be able to move around the room.
I felt ignored. A lot of people would just look at me and like nod their head and like walk away. Even if I asked them a question, they would just kind of walk away. Which was definitely like disheartening.
Okay, thank you. That's really all we can have for it. Thank you. I'm going to go back to project. Oh, yeah, that's a really important part of this. That you also look at your card to determine if you actually self-selected this is the right card. And this is all in the instructions for the activity too, that you can have access to. So, if you notice, what happened specifically in the lower card group is they talked about these interpersonal experiences that they had where people would ignore them, or they had something that was provoking them that would cause this internal monologue about how it is maybe they were supposed to be reacting or responding in the environment. It really does get at the sense of psychological and behavioral climate that Heidi talked about this morning. And that's really important because more often than not, at the institutions where we are, the folks who have social power and institutional power oftentimes don't have access to what it's like for students of color on our campuses when they encounter these daily slights, right? So literally be in a classroom where the faculty member won't make eye contact with you or where other students won't make eye contact with you triggers a sense of feeling ignored that the last person talked about. And that sense of being ignored and certainly not being included has ramifications for how our bodies show up in the classroom or show up in spaces, to the degree that maybe we aren't able to function at the level that maybe we would like to be functioning or the level that we're accustomed to functioning. The idea here is really for you all to be thinking about how might you use this activity with certain groups on your campus to get them into the conversation to really talk experientially about what it's like for students of color. We can pull out all of the statistics and all of the data and that goes up here really intellectually, but when we put people in the position of having to experience it, it becomes a slightly different conversation for them. And we need people with power at our institutions to be engaged in this conversation. The other thing that you probably noticed that I heard people talking about is that this activity can be used for so many different things, whether or not it's like microaggressions or implicit bias or sexism, racism, whatever you want to call it. What you also get a sense of, and I was beginning to hear it from the lower numbers up here, is some of the intra-group dynamics that can also play out. People feeling like others, lower guards had treated them poorly, only to end up here. And then how there was like this conflict with the middle group. Maybe middle group members were harsher, actually, than the people who were in the higher group. Thinking in terms of social mobility and social climbing, and there needs to be people under me in order for me to be able to feel like I'm valuable or worthy in society. So it can be used for a number of different activities, and I would encourage people to be thinking about that as you try to provoke conversations on your campus about what it feels like to be excluded and included.
So the impact, we all know that the impact is very well documented. Microaggressions is my main area. So I started studying this with my mentor, Joel Soon, over 12 years ago. And initially, when we would go out and do these talks, people would not know what they were. And now, I'm sure everybody in this room knows what they are. But every study that I've reviewed, even if it's not been published, has had a negative consequence. I've not seen one study done where it says that there's no impact on microaggressions on any domain that they're studying it in, right? So we know that there are real-world impacts to the bias that our students and our communities are experiencing. Academic disengagement, the whole purpose of us being here, of having a university, is to have an academically engaged community, right? So if students are academically disengaged, that's obviously going to have an impact on their academic achievement, right? And possibly also on their future career trajectory, right? So we can support network. You know, social support is one of those primary mechanisms of coping that we all use. We are interpersonal beings by nature, right? So we thrive off of interpersonal relationships that are optimal and that are supportive. Stereotype threat, imposter phenomenon, something that someone with a PhD I still experience on a daily basis, right? Do I really belong here? Right? Does what I have to say really matter? Right? And the reason I still have those messages saying no is because that's what society tells me on a daily basis. And they have been telling me that since the day I was born. Right? Racial battle fatigue. Sometimes just giving a talk like this can induce racial battle fatigue, right? As I have to talk about things that are traumatic that I possibly or probably have gone through myself. Survivor's guilt. The top one, which I didn't mention first, is dignitary harm. Anybody ever heard of that term, dignitary harm? Yeah, I've not seen it written about anywhere, but I did hear it from the wonderful and amazing Professor Kimberly Crenshaw, right? The originator of intersectionality theory, legal scholar, critical race theorist. I heard her talk a few years ago, and she was describing, how people react and are impacted when their entire identities are not validated, when they feel like they have to parse out a part of themselves because society is saying that part is invalid. So for me, I'm also gay, and so I'm getting older, so it's like, now it's like almost half of my life. I lived in the closet, right? Because I was given messages that was not an appropriate way of being. It's actually, saying not appropriate is actually nice, and like, that is evil. You're going to go to hell. I was also raised Roman Catholic. We were right across the street from the Catholic Church, so those messages were very present in my life. And so when I heard Dr. Crenshaw, PhD, I call her Dr. Crenshaw, Professor Crenshaw talk about this, she was saying that when you're not seen for who you truly are, when you're not validated, when the structures that you interact with on a daily basis say you don't belong here, that can compromise your dignity, right? Our dignity is what tells us that we deserve things, right? That we deserve good things to happen to us, that we have self-worth. And so if your self-worth is compromised, that's probably going to lead to a lot of those other things to occur, right? For you to disengage from that community that you want to belong to, right? For you to develop imposter phenomenon, etc. So I'm starting to conceptualize dignitary harm as being one of those primary things that is targeted when we're targeted because of one of our identities or because of who we are, or who people assume we are, rather. And I wanted to bring up intersectionality as a framework that we can use, as a tool that we can use to analyze the structures, the policies, the procedures, the way that people interact within our communities, to kind of analyze where does power and privilege collide, right, to create the oppression. right? Where do these experiences collide? People all too often misuse and misrepresent intersectionality to kind of just conceptualize it on the individual level, meaning like these are my various intersectional identities. But it's much greater than that. That's not how Professor Crenshaw initially conceptualized it to be. It was greater. We're looking at structures in society. The structures in society that dictate how we understand ourselves, right? And so structures that need to be interfered with, that need to be broken down, and that need to be ultimately rebuilt.
David is referring to power and thinking about it with regards to this work, and we wanted to really highlight that there's a way to do diversity and inclusion work that is probably a very 1980s way of doing it that doesn't explicitly include conversations about power. And what we have to begin to recognize is that if we're going to be inclusive campuses, if we're going to be campuses that really promote equity, we have to talk about how social power functions on those campuses. And there are a lot of different ways to talk about social power. I put up this image of Dr. Kamari Jones, who was a fellow at the School of Medicine down at Morehouse College. And she's also the former president of the American Public Health Association. I heard her on a podcast probably a few months ago, where she was talking about where the city of Milwaukee was beginning to talk about racism as a public health crisis. If you're interested in a really interesting conversation, I would tap into it. I think it was on Point from WBUR in Boston. I see people shaking their heads. Did people hear the podcast? Hear that radio show? No. Yes, some people did, yeah. She was amazing in this. And the thing that really stood out to me is how she talked about power. And it feels like it really brings it down to a level where we can all begin to talk about this. She really highlights that, and she was talking about racism, of course, but this power piece really stood out to me, that racism is a system of power that structures opportunity implicitly in favor of certain groups and at the expense of others, while also assigning value to certain people and devaluing other people. If we can begin to have a conversation about how opportunity structures function on our campus and who gets assigned value, in addition to who's left out of opportunity structures, in addition to who is not as valued on our campus, especially if we use something like the Inclusive Excellence Framework to figure out where resources are being allocated, we've got a real way of entering the conversation to talk about how race and racism and whiteness may actually be contributing to negative outcomes for our students, be they negative academic outcomes, mental health outcomes, or just social outcomes. Okay?
But then, if we're not changing the policy, the structure, that interpersonal dynamic that created that biased event, it's going to repeat itself the next day, right? So it's good that we kind of think about it. We need that, right? We need remediation when those things happen, but we need to move more towards the preventative model, right? Where we're preventing these things. And the only way that we're going to prevent bias is by changing the structures, policies, and procedures that make up the institution. Right? Really easy thing to do, right? That's why it hasn't been done.
Problem solved.
And that also relates to power, because that means that the folks in power have to relinquish some of that power, or actually all of it, in order for true equity and inclusion to truly manifest. We think about different intervention levels, and the examples that we're going to share of different techniques and models that you can use to address these are going to map onto one of these. So there's the personal, so the self-awareness part. So you kind of think about maybe the cultural competency framework, the awareness, knowledge, and skills, right? So thinking about, we have to start with understanding who we are, right? What our strengths are, what our biases are, what our various identities are, what our experiences, and how that has created the worldview that we use to as the filter from which to understand information, interact with people around us. Then we have the interpersonal, so that's the person to person. So this is where microaggressions are likely to occur, right? So one of the major tenets of microaggressions is that they're going to occur whenever worldviews collide. Worldviews are always colliding. Each and every one of us has a unique worldview, right? So you might even be talking to someone who looks exactly like you, speaks like you, comes from the same area, but you're not the same, right? So the opportunity for microaggressions to occur is ever present, right? And so that interpersonal level is the next one. The institutional community, that's where we're getting to some of that structural change that we want to see happen, right? And that's where the equity and mental health framework comes into play as one of those institutional mechanisms for change that we can incorporate, as well as some other programs and mechanisms and interventions that we'll discuss.
Okay, so the first thing that we wanted to do was actually come back and center the experiences of people of color in this conversation. One of the things that can often happen is that when we begin to talk about racism or when we begin to talk about whiteness on campus, we will actually try to focus a lot on how we remediate the white folks in the environment to make sure, or to try and get them on board, or try to ensure that maybe they stop doing some of the things they're doing. It becomes really important, though, as institutions of higher education, with the knowledge that racism is a part of the American educational system, we have to take it upon ourselves to make sure that we are preparing our students of color to be able to respond when these things happen. One of the things that feels most threatening or most dangerous or most deleterious to students is when they get to our college campuses, they experience racism and they weren't expecting it. Right? So we have to be intentional about talking to them about this. When like David, I'm a counseling psychologist, and I studied with Dr. Janet Helms. And one of the things that we frequently talked about in the course of my training was about how people were experiencing the terrorism of racism in their bodies and how it is that we would often get stuck in that terroristic experience without figuring out how to recover. And so a couple of years ago, right around the time when social media began to explode with all of these videos of unarmed black men and women being shot by their police, some peers and I engaged in writing a piece that really resulted in a toolkit for people of color to be thinking about how should we be taking care of ourselves as we are exposed to this type of violence. That being said, there's also a way for white folks to be thinking about how they could also use this racism recovery plan, right? There are certainly no one-to-one parallels, but as I walk quickly through the plan, I do want white folks to be thinking about what is it that I need to be doing in order to be able to recover when racism occurs in the environment as well. Because we do need our white allies to be equally invested and participatory in the conversation, because if it's only people of color carrying the conversation or figuring out how to recover, we're never going to get this thing taken care of, okay? So really quickly, some of the pieces to the plan revolve around preparing yourself a racial wellness toolbox. And this paper is actually available on, if you look up ISDRC, which is the Institute for the Study and Promotion of Race and Culture at Boston College. The name of the paper is actually hashtag, with the actual hashtag, racial trauma is real, all one word. So you can have access to it there. And I really just took the bottom part of the paper and put it into these slides. But you start with a racial wellness toolbox where you actually begin to think about what is it like for me when I'm doing well, when I'm capably responding to racism, right? Outlining what those behaviors and those thoughts and those feelings look like. The next thing that you want to do is begin to prepare for yourself some daily centering strategies. What works for you in order to be able to bring yourself back to your whole self, even if it's something like what David did for us at the beginning around the meditation, or if it's running, or if it's eating well, or if it's being engaged in a spiritual community, whatever it happens, whatever helps you to come back to center such that you don't feel so thrown off, and you can actually think through and feel your way through some of these terrible experiences that you're having, the much more equipped you're going to be, because actually everything comes back to this daily centeredness plan. Every other aspect of this plan comes back to this piece right here. Okay? The next piece is about the racial trauma triggers, really knowing what are your triggers, right? You'll see there that I put up two images. One is around breaking news. Of course, the news is always triggering people. The person in the White House tweets really crazy things at all hours of the day and night, and the press jumps on them and puts them in front of us. Or it could be certain types of holiday celebrations, right, that will trigger people. On our campus, we're talking about cultural appropriation over the course of the next 2 weeks, because we know that students of color in specific are often triggered by what some of our fraternities and sororities engage in that they call fun. Okay? Knowing too what the early warning signs are. How does your body begin to communicate to you that you are about to go into a place maybe that you don't want to be in as a result of some of the terror or the trauma that you're experiencing? What are those early warning signs? And we provide some ways of being able to think about that there. And then, how is it that I know that I've actually slipped into an acute traumatic or an acute stress response? What are some of the indicators there? And always, again, coming back to that daily centeredness plan to be able to rescue yourself. And then what happens when I'm in crisis? We know that for many of our students, and especially students of color on our campuses, what can happen for them, and were we talking about this? Oh, no, I was doing a training yesterday at Boston College where I graduated from, back to a training. And late last semester, they had an incident where a student wrote the N-word on the walls of a residence hall room, and was also doing some other really negative things across campus. And the news came out and interviewed some of the students, and one of the students talked about crying so much that she couldn't even focus and try to get her work done. They were right in the middle of finals, right? So she was in a crisis, right? Well, not necessarily, crisis could also mean you're thinking about harming yourself, or you are using really maladaptive coping strategies that could put you into a place where you could be, you need some medical help or some psychological help. But the crisis could be really unique given the person's circumstances. But developing a crisis plan for whatever it is that people are experiencing becomes important. Also, making sure that you share this plan with somebody else who might be able to help you if you're not thinking carefully through what you need to do in order to be able to survive. Okay? And then the last piece is really about what's post-crisis planning. What is it that you need to do in order to be able to integrate back into the community? Okay? One of the things that again, we really wanted to emphasize, and one of my staff members at the University of Maryland is always talking about this, we cannot forget that people of color are being affected by these conversations, and oftentimes they're the ones who are carrying the heavy load, and so they're carrying the trauma in their bodies while we're trying to remediate the folks in the room to stop them from doing these things. We have to make sure that we remember that people of color need to hear.
Who here has issues addressing microaggressions when they occur? Anybody? It's a common thing, right? There's that common kind of anxiety or even identifying it, but that's one question I'm often asked, well, how do you respond? What's the most appropriate way to respond? There really is no one correct answer, but I do have a model that I can share with you that you can use to help develop those answers for yourself. And oftentimes, I know when I experience them, especially when it's kind of a new flavor of a microaggression, I usually don't have a quick-witted response, right? I kind of just absorb it and get out of there. If it's someone I really care to be around, right? I can do that way, right? And then after the fact is when I usually, I should have said that, right? So now I write them down, so I will say that next time. So do that for yourselves as well. But there's a 4-step model that my mentor, this current research team, recently developed. This article is available in the American Psychologist. It was published in January of this year. But there are 4 kind of simple steps that you can take to kind of address the microaggression, make a point, and have it be kind of an educative experience, but also a healing experience for yourself. And so the first one is to make the invisible visible. Right? Microaggressions often fly under the radar. Right? Microaggressions, the words don't often match the implied meaning, right? The implicit meaning behind it. So for example, I'm often asked where I'm from. I live in New York City. Super common question, especially on college campuses, people are coming from all over the place. So it's often a question, right? When does that become a microaggression, though? Yeah, so when you're asked it again. So if I say I'm from Wyoming, and then they're asked, where are you really from? I'm like, Cheyenne. No, where are you really from? The South Side. So I do that kind of purposefully. And then I'm like, oh, what is the implied message behind that? Not from here being where? Yes. And so I said, oh, you're asking my nationality or you're asking my heritage, right? And so what I did right there is I messed with the communication. I made that obvious in my response, right? So that's a really kind of an elegant way of addressing it without putting the other person on the defense so much. Maybe you want them to have some kind of reaction, right? But you want to kind of open up some dialogue sometimes with microaggressions. I'm not going to say you want to do that all the time. The next one is to disarm it, right? So you have to show some kind of disagreement. And what we find is that it doesn't have to be verbal disagreement, right? The verbal disagreement is often met with another microaggression. The most common response is, oh, I didn't mean it that way. Well, what the hell did you mean that? Right? So I don't care. One thing I'll say, I don't really care about your intent. I care about the impact. So let's focus on the impact, right? And then we can talk about the intent maybe. But using nonverbal communication is even more effective. What percentage of our communication is nonverbal? Yeah, it's like 85%. It's really high, right? And that includes everything, including vocal tones, volume, etc. We communicate so much beyond the literal words that are coming out of our mouth based off of our body language. So another really easy way to do that is just to say we're having a microaggression encounter. Let me use you as an example. Say something to me. I do this. What does that communicate? right, something, I'm protecting myself, right? And that communicates to the other person, something like wrong, I might even take a step back, right? And I might do this as well. This is much more in a very effective short amount of time than any words that you can develop, because most likely you're going to be thinking about what am I, or you might actually just be feeling about, right? So you're stuck with that emotion, which can then sometimes cloud our ability or inhibit our ability to kind of vocalize what's truly going on inside. So using a nonverbal reaction can be extremely effective and possibly even more effective than the actual words that map onto it. And then educating the offender, if you care to, that I would say is not necessarily your job, but if you care to, let's say this is in a workplace situation, this is with a significant person in your life, maybe you want them to kind of develop some more anti-racist ways or anti-gender sexist ways or anti-heterosexist ways of being, right? And so then you might educate them about that difference between intent and impact, right? You might appeal to their values as well for someone that you know. You can be like, I know that you're a good person. Because that's often what they're going to be thinking that you're attacking them, right? Is their goodness, right? Good people commit microaggressions. I study microaggressions and I commit microaggressions. No one is immune to committing microaggressions. So I often give that as well. And this is something that we all engage in, but we need to engage in a self-reflective practice so that we can mitigate and minimize the amount of microaggressions that we kind of throw out into society. And the last one is to seek some kind of external intervention. I have a lot of chats where Carlton's on one of them. Oftentimes we'll share things that happen to us, right? So that's another form of social support. So find those folks within your life that can provide you with that support, that validation, because you're not likely to get that from the person who is being active in microaggression, right? And your experience needs to be validated. This was a real experience that that happened to you, and people need to see that. Reporting it if appropriate. So that the STEEP Fund, one of the equity and mental health framework recommendations is to make sure that your campus has a very identifiable and accessible and easy to use bias response mechanism, right? And that should include microaggressions. Universities can go above and beyond what the law dictates, right? We shouldn't just be forming our policies to meet a standard that is legally dictated, because we know that that's just very basic, right? We can go much deeper than that, and I encourage us to go much deeper than that when we develop our interventions, especially in terms of bias responses and what we're going to take as a legitimate bias experience.
One of the things that often happens when racist events occur on our campus is that the president's office or strategic communications or the equity office or the diversity office will produce a statement about the incident, right? Sometimes. Other times it can just go unaddressed, right? What we know, and what I know from my work at the University of Maryland, prior to taking on this role, I was a staff psychologist in the counseling center for about 5 years. And students would oftentimes come in, and the University of Maryland has been a hotbed of stuff for the past 5 or 6 years. And so students would come in, and one of the things that they would really struggle with was some of the public statements that were coming out of the administration building, right? And I'm looking around and watching people's heads nod to this very issue. One of the things that we have to really do if we're thinking about an institutional change is try to get our administrators to begin thinking about how do you release statements that are much more appropriate and nurturing for our student body. On our campus is Dr. Sharon Fries-Britt, who is one of the researchers who went to the University of Missouri campus in the aftermath of what was taking place there. And she worked with some folks at the American Council on Education to produce a report about Missouri and how it is that folks can begin to think about taking the Missouri lessons and putting them into practice. She has recently gone back after publishing that first report, and one of the things that I was in a conversation with her that she shared is that one of the things that Missouri did initially over the course of all the time, up until probably about now, is they focused most of their communication externally to the community, to alumni, to really communicate to them that everything was okay on campus. What they didn't do was take care of the internal campus community, right? Which happens most of the time for many of us. This is the exact same thing that's happened at the University of Maryland as well. We've had some issues, we've done a lot of communicating outward, we have not done a good job of really taking care of the internal community. This piece that I wanted to share with you is about how it is that we get folks at the upper level to begin thinking about messaging a little bit differently. This article came out in the Chronicle in 2018, I think it was, yeah. And they talked about what's the playbook for responding to these racial-related incidents. And if you take a look at it, it actually seems really familiar in a way. People talk about the act, they do say something about we don't condone this type of behavior or this type of behavior is not welcome on our campus. These behaviors do not align with our institution's values and our core principles. We want to make sure that our students who are affected by this know that we care about them, something very general like that. And then the other two pieces that are encoded or stated in this article that came from conversations with university presidents is you just kind of ride it out. You take the hit and ride it out. You don't really have to do much more after that. Right? Which fascinates me to no end to think that we are actually the people who are entrusted to steward these students' lives in a very vulnerable time for them. Right? So I've come up with, or have begun thinking about, what can be some ways for us to think about helping our administrators think about doing this a little bit differently. And this is really an unfinished model, and they don't do it on my campus, don't get me wrong. So it's just me thinking about these things based on my interactions with folks on our campus. One of the things that may really be important is for our administrators to begin thinking about how they adapt an anti-racist stance around these things. And the anti-racist stance for me really, really gets at how might we actually bring in to the center of this conversation the very students who have been targeted in these conversations, listen to them, and let them help us determine how it is that we should proceed with our messaging from there. Which is also really consistent with the equity and mental health framework, which is about engaging students to understand what it is that their needs are around mental health, so that we can plan from there, rather than thinking that we have all the expertise and we do something for them. Okay? The other piece I think is really important is that we try to get our folks to avoid a First Amendment debate. I don't have to go into this very much, but the First Amendment is about really the folks who are committing these racist acts. What that does is that it immediately erases the folks who have been impacted by these racist acts. And again, we want to center the folks who've been impacted. The one at the top over there is the work that we really need our campus leaders to begin thinking about doing, which is we need folks to talk about how difficult it is to have race-related conversations. That needs to come out of the mouth of the university president or whoever is delivering the message. If, in fact, we can acknowledge that there's some anxiety that goes along with that, we actually put our campus in a better place of acknowledging that there's some anxiety that might actually be keeping us from having the conversation more broadly. So to have that type of message comes from the top. I won't go through all of those, but I will say we can't keep gaslighting students and saying things like this is not the nature of our institution, when you can open up a yearbook or open up the school newspaper and find a slew of things that have happened that actually say this is the character of our institution. Right? We need our leaders to assemble, and I had to truncate it there, but we need them to assemble with racially conscious others. Not just other people. They need people with some racial consciousness in the room that they can talk with about these issues. Because the blind will lead the blind, right, down, and that's certainly, maybe I shouldn't say that because it's ableist, but the ignorant people will lead the ignorant people into the ditch, right? The other piece is that we need white educators to be involved in going out and attending to the folks who have committed the racist acts. Don't send the people of color to go and talk to the white people who have done the racist things. That's more of a burden for us. Right? We really have to engage white folks in that conversation. These last pieces are really about how do we take some steps to make sure that we actually are centering, maybe that's why I did it there. Centering the experiences of the folks, which is about having conversations with them, then communicating to the campus community, this is the impact that this could have on our students. People tend to, even when we're thinking about the microaggressions work, we want to get people into their feelings. We want them to know that folks are being harmed, right? If we are going to be a humane campus, we want people to be able to respond to the impact that folks are experiencing. And then, of course, you want to make sure that you're apprising key folks on your campus about the efforts and about what's going on. I put in other offices because I think that there are two that become really important. Of course, your campus police need to be brought into this conversation from an anti-racist perspective. We know that the culture of policing in and of itself actually promotes racism and actually takes the lives of people. We just continue to see it on so many levels. What's the latest incident? I can't even think about what it is. Police show up and somebody ends up dying. Oh, the woman down forward. A woman died because somebody called the police. Right? So we have to really get the police into an anti-racist stance, and we also have to get our strategic communications people into an anti-racist perspective. No, we all know how these things work. Of course, higher education was made for white folks, so each one of the disciplines is also made with white folks and taught from white people's perspectives. How do we raise some awareness around some of the strategic communications, marketing, communications people, to get them to understand that their training is actually based in white ways of being, so that they can think about communicating in ways that are not so white and perpetuate racism? Oh, sorry.
We recognize we only have like 4 minutes left, so my whole promise that we have 15 minutes for dialogue is out the window. I'm so sorry. One thing that we can do along the way before the structures actually change is to create structures within the structures, right? So counter spaces. Anyone familiar with the counter space framework? Right? It kind of comes from critical race theory. I also encourage you to use critical theories as really guiding tools to help do this work as well. They're very practical in many ways. But creating counter spaces have been done throughout history, right? Where we can gather people who have similar experiences, especially similar experiences with trauma, right? Similar experiences with racism, with sexism, with heterosexism, together so they can kind of have a space that is counter to those biased spaces that they have to traverse on a daily basis, right? So these can be spaces of healing. Many campuses already have them embedded. They have a multicultural resource center, right? Or what have you, but they can't be relegated to those spaces either, right? There's actually a problem with having, it's going to be controversial, diversity offices, because universities will think that that is our answer to everything, right? Our whole goal is not to have those offices, right? So we need to distribute these counter spaces across the campus, right? Where students can have easy access to these spaces where they can have validation, right? These settings, as Bell Hood said, represent radical possibility. When you're able to come in and be with people who understand you, where you don't have to explain your experience at the risk of it being invalidated, a lot of possibility can happen there, right? So I encourage us to create these spaces within our own offices, right? We have that power to do that, right? So let's kind of think about how can we use counter spaces for healing.
Why don't we just stop? Okay, we're going to do that.
Yes.
So we really did want to have questions from you, but of course we ran out of time. One of the things that we'd love for you to do is, if you have a piece of paper, to begin thinking about responding to these three stems. And we'd like to be able to take these from you so that we can collect them and collate them and maybe try to get them back out to the folks who are here to begin just thinking about what it is that people can commit themselves to around this work. But we also want you to tell us a little bit maybe what you like about this presentation. So finishing, doing the 3 stems. I like whatever you like. I will, as a result of something that you heard here, or something that was triggered in your thinking, that you will do. Going back to your campus, in addition to, I wish maybe that we had talked about a certain thing, or I wish something for your campus, whatever it happens to be. But if you could jot those down, and we'd like to take those from you before you leave.
And as Dr. Green mentioned, we will try to find a way to collate these and get them back to you, because that also maps onto the equity mental health framework, sharing information and resources amongst each other. That's what these convenings are all meant to do, right? So you can have meaningful interactions with each other, share things that you're doing on your campuses, best practices, see how we can automate them for our use as well.